my name is Zabur Jamal, and I'm a graduate student here at the University of Illinois. Today, I'm recording this video to introduce you to a series of interviews that I did with an author named Clark Daniels. He's based in Canada. The story is based on the story of Muhammad Usman. Just by way of background, Muhammad Usman was born in an area called Lagagaba in the region of Dadar. This is in East Hararghe region. Essentially, Muhammad Usman left Ethiopia when he was a kid. He wanted to get education in a foreign country, somewhere in the Middle East, and somehow he ends up in a military camp in Somalia, and he goes on to be trained by Russian intelligence officers. In the process, we came to discover his journey and his passion to contribute something to the struggle for freedom as far as Oromos. And for me, I think the most important question is, do we really understand the question of what motivates people like Muhammad Usman to take up arm? And also, by extension, do we understand, the nature of violence itself? Why do people go to the jungle or the desert and take up arms to kill another, human beings? These are the questions that humanity has been grappling with for centuries, ever since the Chinese invented gunpowder around the 9th or 11th century. We have been facing the issue of how to resolve human violence. Actually, interestingly, the Chinese, when they invented gunpowder, the idea was not to kill. Um, they're alchemists, meaning people who mix up, things, chemicals, uh, and so forth. They were just mixing up these chemical compounds, and it ended up being explosive, and that's where we get the idea of guns, and also um, that people learn how to early on how to efficiently kill other human beings. Um, that's more of a, I guess, a philosophical slash moral question that I kept asking myself as I was editing the book, and also in the process of learning about this story. Um, and again, I don't have an answer to these questions. Some people argue that violence is programmed. Some people argue that violence is taught. Um, but as someone whose family has faced genocide, I think it's a debate that's worth having. Again, being able to understand the motivations and the aspirations behind why some people go to go to great length to engage in violence is, I think, a very important question to understand. Um, it's with that spirit that I invite you to watch these interviews, and I hope some of these ideas will challenge you. And again, that's my point. It's not that critical, that I tell you things that you already know. Um, and it's always a good idea to engage in issues that challenge our conscience, um, ideas that challenge our thinking, our way of life, um, and also our perception of reality, and our relationship with that reality. And also, we should always strive on a journey to discover what we think is the truth, and give us opportunity to understand the nature of conflict among Ethiopians. And it's my hope that you will approach these interviews with a critical mind, but with an open heart. I will leave you at that. Again, enjoy the interviews. If you have some ideas, comment on it. Through Muhammad Usman's story, we come to understand the true nature of warfare, its costly nature, both in terms of human life and also non-human cost. We also see uplifting stories. For example, there's a story where Muhammad Usman went on to save an Amhara village from an impending massacre. We also see a lot of other tragedies. For example, in an area called El Daehe, there was a huge number of people that were killed, and Muhammad Usman describes in his book where wild animals are just devouring human bodies. The identities of some of these people are not easily identified. All right, we're back again. So you named the book Muhammad's Mission.
For me, there's a lot in the book, but the one thread throughout the book is you could say it's kind of a vector in a way, and that is Muhammad and his mission. This is the guiding thread from his earliest years, even at the age of 5, to when he leaves. It is a thread that runs through it. His mission runs through it. And his mission is a free Oromia and the protection of Oromos and the advancement of the Oromo culture. So this is his mission in the general sense. It is to raise the esteem that the Oromo has for being Oromo, among the Oromo. Got it published. It's on the Friesen Press. It's a great feeling to have it at this point in his journey. The first, I was a tutor in Red Deer, at Red Deer, the Dog Community Center, tutoring English as a second language. One of my students was an Oromo, and he had suggested to Muhammad Osman that I might be able to help him with his book. He told me, Mulata told me about the book as much as he knew, and that he had been working on this book for quite a while, and would I be willing to do it? And I said, yeah. And so he let Muhammad know that I was interested, and Muhammad phoned me. I think he phoned me. I don't remember now. I may have phoned him. In any case, we did meet on Skype. We talked over the phone, and we decided to meet on Skype. We did. And that was the first of, well, it must have been hundreds of meetings, actually, on Skype. And we began right away, just about, working on the book. About an hour and a half a day, 5 days a week, for 5 years. And so I got to know Muhammad. Muhammad got to know me. It was a pleasure for me, but he was kind of frustrated with me because he would say, well, did you do it? And I'd say, no, not yet. And so I think it was a minimal level of frustration there with my response to getting things done. But he emailed me the manuscript, and I looked at the manuscript, and it was quite good. I really liked the way it started off. It started off starts as a story, basically, and it was given a good foundation as far as genres go. I think with a story you have drama, and this really pulls people into a book. It's like a novel. If you like a novel, you'll like a novel. If you don't like the novel you're reading, then you put it down, you don't read it. If you don't like it, it's because there's something about the drama you don't like, whatever. So I really think that if people don't like a book, they really don't like a book. And if they like a book, they really like a book.
Mm.
And all that's because it is that either draws you in or it doesn't. This book draws you in. And I think that has a lot to do with the first person working on the book, really to work on the book, was Lori Fisher. Lori Fisher is Ottman today. And she did a fantastic job of working with Mohammed. I wasn't there, so that's what Mohammed told me about it. She was very responsive. She was also a tutor, and he was in need of some support, and his wife some social support. And she offered that and listened to his stories to the point that she thought that, yeah, she wanted to help him publish this book. She wanted to make it happen. And I understand that she even phoned Oprah to see if she would be willing to put Mohammed on the show, and so that they could put out the situation they almost found themselves in, their history and something about them. So that was, and I don't think that didn't happen, but it does show you her initiative and that she was really interested in the Oromo. And when you read the preface to the book that she wrote a few years back, and that you can see that she did feel deeply about the Oromo, as I do. So I think starting with a third person sort of novel approach where we are kind of in Muhammad's head throughout the story, and when he is about to encounter something, you are also about to encounter it. When he experiences something, when he experiences grief or joy, you also are experiencing grief and joy. When he has second thoughts about some issue, when he's worried about something, you get it. You get the worry. You get the feel for it. So you're with, on his whole journey from 5 years old till about in his early 20s, you're with Mohammed all the way, and maybe not every day, but a great deal of the time. So you get that general flow, and you get feel for the situations he's in. Some of the situations in the book are funny. Some of them are upsetting. Some of them are very upsetting. And but what comes out through it is Mohammed's character. That comes through the book, and that is what the book's about. Mohammed's character, though, what he's about is about the Oromo, about the Oromo situation and the subjugation of the Oromo today in Ethiopia, and for some time, not just today, but for centuries actually. And his sensitivity to the Oromo situation, and his determination to do something about it, to fight for a free Oromia. Most of all, he wanted to give to people a sense of who they were. He wanted them to feel that they were Oromo. Some of them, they thought maybe they were Gala, just farmers, or they didn't think of themselves as an Oromo, but they all, generally, that was his purpose, to make them feel good about being Oromo. It is his name. And Mohammed's name is his story. It's about Mohammed. So he is, insofar as it's about Mohammed. Mohammed, that's important, is the mission. Mohammed's mission. Because Mohammed's mission is, well, his initial impulse, his initial mission that he determined to leave. He left his village to strike out on a mission. And his mission was to fight or to come back. Actually, his first mission intent was to become educated. He originally wanted to go to Saudi Arabia to become educated. And he wanted to come back to Oromo to help educate the Oromo as to their history and in their language and in general. So that was what his intent was, to express his determination as to become a highly educated Oromo and come back to Oromia and teach. But he discovered on his mission, on his way, that that was not possible. That if he left to go to Saudi Arabia to become educated, that he would not be allowed back into Oromia. he would not be allowed back into Ethiopia to teach. So he wouldn't be able to come back to teach the Ethiopia.
Why is that
So
the policy of the government, or why do you think
yes,
that is?
that's government policy. Yes, it was the Ethiopian government's policy at that time. So if you left, got an education, then you weren't allowed back in. The reason for that is because they feared, the government, the Abyssinians, feared the educated Oromo. Because the educated Oromo was able to arouse the ardor of Oromos, to impress them with their Oromifa, with who they were, Oromo. And they knew that they could make a difference, and that they would not be submissive, that the Oromo would not be submissive. So the educated Oromo was considered a significant figure. And whenever they executed Oromos, they always went after the elite Oromos. And they would take them and they would execute them. So the idea is chopping off the head, the Oromos, to an extent. And so that's why he wanted to go to Saudi Arabia, to come back and to be a force, to instill in people a sense of what it is to be a Oromo, to make them aware. That was part of it. But he couldn't do that. He discovered that that was impossible. Other options were available, and he was aware of Jera Abagada and what he had been doing as a military force. And he was told about what he was trying to do, and he wanted to then become trained in the military way. So that was the other avenue.
Yeah.
So he actually did it at a very young age. He began training. But it's very interesting to see what that's about. The training is about something that is, it makes the book important because it sets a scene like this as well. It's a scene between the Somalis and the Oromo. And that scene is an organization called the Western Somali Liberation Front, WSLF. So you may ask yourself, because this training takes place with the WSLF, why with the WSLF? That's because the Western Somalis were also looking for independence from Somalia. And the Oromos were looking for independence from Ethiopia. And so they could work together to free that area of the Eastern Harargean, that area, and Bali. And if they could, then they could work together to find to discover a way, to determine a way to share governance of the area. But that would be what they would do. However, Zia Bare wanted the Oromos to fight for the Somalis, for him, for Zia Bare. The Ethiopians wanted the Oromos to fight for them, to fight the Somalis. Well, the Western Somalis, the Zia Bare wanted them to fight for Greater Somalia, which is Zia Bare's idea of a domain that would be a domain fundamentally run by his clan. So, but they didn't want to be. They felt independent of Somali's dream of a Greater Somalia. They felt that. So you have the Western Somalis and the Oromos, but working together, training together. But they're training because Zia Bare sees them as a unit, the Western Somalis and the Oromo, Western Somalis particularly. At this time there was a ceasefire between. No, I'm trying to remember how this works, but between Ethiopia and Oromia, a UN made ceasefire. And the UN had said that there would not be any training camps. The Western Somalis, rather Somalia, that would be Zia Bare, could not establish a training camp close to the border of Ethiopia. It had to be back further. So what they did is they established an agricultural collective agricultural training camp close to the border. But there was a clandestine, they were going to build a clandestine military training camp in the same area, adjacent to this agricultural training camp. And that's where the Western Somalis and the Oromos would be trained. Now the fact is that Zia Bare was determined to try to force upon the Oromo an identity, that identity being the Somali Abu. He said, these are Somalis. A Somali Abu is an Oromo who speaks Somali. And he wants to say that a Oromo who speaks Somali isn't an Oromo, but he is a Somali Abu. And that means a Somalian who speaks Oromo. So that's where you have this problem with identity. Like the Oromos who came to the camp, they saw that they were going to have to, many of them, well, actually all except for Muhammad, thought that they would have to, see, all of this is written in the book. And that's why I don't like to tell it, because they will come upon it. But the Oromos, the point is, if you're going to fight, you need guns, you need ammo, and you need gear, and you need training on how to fight. So if you're going to fight along with a force like Ajer Abagadas, or Alemo Gilto, Ajer Abagada. So if you're going to fight like that, you have to have equipment, you have to have ammo, you have to have training. So the Oromos are always looking for training, either with the Eritrean forces or with the Saudis or the PLO or whatever. So they did get training in various groups, but they couldn't do it get training within Ethiopia itself.
Yes.
But Siabare, you could possibly become trained, which he did. Now, he saw the value in it, and Muhammad did. He saw the value in getting trained, because this was the only recourse, is to get trained that way. He was in close communication with the Oromo communities in Hargeisa and in Hararge, that would be at Tiridawa, places like that. And so he there was a point in 77, I believe it was. This is later. This is after he's already pretty much trained up. And where's he going to go? And
this is at the camp in Somalia, right, on the border of Ethiopia and Somalia.
It would be at this point he's working between the borders a bit.
Right. Yeah.
And across the border and back. But I guess he would be in Somalia at this point. But it's close to the border. But there were Romas in the area. Yeah. And that's one thing about that's another aspect to the Horn of Africa and the effect the Western powers had on it, is they established artificial boundaries. Whereas you had, with the Oromos and with the Somalis, you actually had a kind of a sense the elders of Somalis and the Oromos, they would negotiate as the seasons passed, they would water rights or the use of water. They would share water for animals if they were pastoral, and they worked things out. So there was an interplay, and the boundary wasn't significant before.
Right.
Before they forced them on. So it's really a very forced concept of nation or state or whatever. But there was a fair bit of interplay, and that's why they weren't really, I wouldn't call them natural enemies, really.
Yeah, I mean, the Somalis and the
Oromo, I wouldn't call them natural enemies.
Especially from the eastern, the Hararge region, they have a very
well, you take a place like Hargeisa, there's both, there's plenty, and that's in Somalia. So you had quite a number of Oromos in Hargeisa, and in Hararge, in the region of Hararge, eastern Hararge, you had both, and you had the Bale, you had the Somalis, and this concept of the Western Somalis working with the Oromos of the east. So
the idea of the Zia Barre, claiming this idea of Greater Somalia.
Greater Somalia.
Somalia. This is kind of a long-running issue, I guess, between
very long, yes, even before.
Right. Yeah. So, what do you think of just to tie this back in? Currently, you have about close to 1 million, I guess, Oromos from Hararge area that are being displaced.
Yes.
for various reasons. Yeah, it seems like the conflict is still there. I mean, do you see any
Well,
parallel between what's happening now and what happened
I
decades back?
think it's somewhat similar, insofar as a lot that went on then had to do with collectivization,
Hmm.
and that is creating monocultures. Large swaths of land were given over to monocultures, uh, where they use big machines and to strip the land of vegetation and to create sort of a
Right.
lack of, and then they
Yeah.
use tons of fertilizer to grow food. And but the people that were on the land are moved out and sent somewhere else and
Hmm.
displaced. And so you had that back in Mengistu, and you had it also in Zimbabwe with his people back in Somalia, and you have droughts. Unfortunately, though, with even Haile Selassie, one of his downfalls was that he had created a drought situation, a
Hmm.
really bad drought situation, not long before uh, he was deposed. He was quite old at that time. He was in his 80s, I think.
Yeah.
So
Hmm.
when he was finally deposed by Mengistu.
Right.
But to get back to this sense of land and the significance then and now,
Hmm.
uh, you have this displacement that you see today in Ethiopia has a lot to do with the need to lease land off to Saudi Arabians, to the Chinese, and to others. And when they lease the Ethiopian land, then they grow a monoculture crop for the most part. Or
Hmm.
if they don't grow that, they're growing it for their own country. They're growing it to export it.
Right.
So it's, and this land, uh, the Oromos were able to live off the land. They, in all of Africa, there was a fairly, there was a different kind of a culture
Hmm.
of, of agricultural culture, not to be identified with the Western concept,
Right.
which is one of, so you sort of destroy the village network in the village sense of a combination of animals and uh, plant agriculture,
Right.
so that you have different, you have kind of a cash flow one way, and at the same time you have actually animals you can eat if you have to, and produce that you would keep for yourself and sell some of it for cash. But it would be something quite manageable, and you could take care of bad times and good times with that kind of control of your surrounding land. But when you're stripped from it and sent away to probably unproductive land or even to desert, then you're you're hooped, as we say.
Hmm.
And then,
Right.
so well, that is what you have
Hmm.
today is the 2%, I think it is 6% at the most, Tigrayans in the Horn of Africa are running the show, and they're carrying out all of these deals with other countries to sell the land, and the Oromos are in the way. They constitute the largest ethno nation in the Horn of Africa. So that's a lot of people. You got to put them somewhere else because you want to sell the land. You want the land to be productive for the Chinese and Saudi Arabians and the U.S. perhaps, but
Hmm.
there are different people that are big time, big dollars, because you have a culture when it comes to land. It's not about food. It's about commodity. It's like the stock exchange. It's a commodity stock exchange. It's how to make money.
Hmm.